Welcome to True Print for Life. I'm your host, Christina Vera.
And I'm your co-host, Maylin Sambois.
Welcome back to another dynamic episode. But before we jump right in, I do want to remind you, if you haven't grabbed our latest book, The Journey from Who You Are to Who You're Meant to Be, it is on Amazon. It's also on our website at www.trueprintforlife.com. And thank you for those who are purchasing. We're hearing great feedback. We really want to get an idea of how did the book speak to you? How is it impacting you? And as we are starting to gather ideas and suggestions for our next book, we would love for your input in that process. And so today, as we are now entering into second quarter, crazy,
how?
I don't know, we're in April now.
It's April.
It's already April.
Mid-April.
Yeah, right. And so we're definitely at the top of second quarter. So at this point, first quarter,
it's over.
It's over. And I think that there's always that in between. You get into fourth quarter, you're working so hard. And it's interesting because for many folks that I've spoken to, it's fourth quarter didn't even feel like any real downtime as it has in years past where you were able to take some downtime. It was go, 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 go. Even up till the week of all the holidays.
It was a hard fourth quarter for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it was a stressful fourth quarter because so many businesses, so much is happening in terms of revenue, impact, political climate. And so it just felt like a very uneasiness. And so I think going into the new year, still very much, uneasy about a lot of different things. But also in a space of trying to not get stagnant and get stuck in that space. But it's okay, what do we need to iron out, work out? And I think first quarter is always that gift of the in-between of what did we want to carry over from last year? What did we want to try differently? And trying to really create intentional opportunities and strategies to be able to saying okay, this is a whole new year. And by second quarter, it's what are we doing?
Exactly. How do we make this happen? Whatever didn't happen in the fourth quarter, whatever did not happen in the first quarter, this is a perfect time. They always say the best time was yesterday and the next best time is right now.
Absolutely. And so today's topic is you don't need more information, you need execution.
How many of you felt like you got slapped? I would like to know by the raise of hands, how many of you felt like you got slapped? And when you said that before we got started, I was like, I feel like why are you attacking me?
No,
but not me. But I'm sure whoever's listening, if you are a lover for information and you always feel like you need one more thing before you just take that next step, you're probably looking man, that's me. And that's okay if that's you. That's why we're having this conversation.
Absolutely. And it's never, any of our conversations is always from a place of reflection, love, support, because these are things that, yes, we're speaking as, experts in some of these spaces, but we're also on this learning journey of, business and as women, as mothers, and so all the titles that we wear. So it's not that we have, all the things figured out, but there's some parts that I think we are making progress on, and it's always our intention to share where we're making that progress. So today, as we think about you don't need more information, you need execution, and why people stay stuck in that learning mode. And I think that, Maylin shared a YouTube clip with me. Remind me of the gentleman's name?
Myron.
Yeah.
Myron Byron?
Something like that.
Yes. I'm going to find his name.
And I've seen him periodically on TikTok, different little snippets.
Myron Golden.
Myron Golden.
Before I even find it. Myron Golden.
Okay.
Yes. He is all over the world. Yeah. Myron Golden. He's well known.
Well known. Has been, in the game for, decades. Yeah. And I think that it's one of those things where sometimes you feel like you invest in so many different courses and, subscriptions. And it's just at what point are you taking any of what you've learned and actually looking in a space of implementation? And if you have begun the process of implementing, how are you really assessing, engaging your return on that investment? So when you hear ROI, what does that mean? I think it's we can easily become collectors of information and yet become stagnant with the actual most critical step, which is implementation and execution.
But I think there's a reason, right? Because is the fear of failing. It's a limiting belief, to be honest. And I can speak for experience. I, for whatever reason, feel like I have to I love information. I love learning. I love it. And if there's a course, I'm like, yes, I sign up, I pay, sometimes thousands. But then I don't execute. Right? Like, for whatever reason, I'm like, well, maybe this next one is the one. This is going to be the one. And then at one point I had to tell myself, I'm like, you are not allowed right now to get one more course until you implement. Because what is the purpose of having all these amazing tools if you're not using them? Mm-hmm. So that's why the topic was really interesting, because yesterday, when I was listening to a couple of his videos, in one of them he couldn't spell a word live. He's doing a video, it gets millions of views, and he's like, I didn't do spell check. I cannot spell this word. He's like, so if you're doing your own video, then you spell it. But for me, how you spell it, right? So it was watching the imperfection that sometimes, you record a video 3,000 times because you stutter or you did something, mm-hmm. and you're like, that's not perfect. Let me do it again. Oh, my eyes are looking weird. Let me do it again. And this man will get on a video and he will have a board, which I was like, I need one of those. Mm-hmm. And then he would just speak from sharing his growth. He's literally sharing the things that he's been through. He's not perfect. He even he has an issue with one of his legs. And I didn't even notice that until he got from his chair. He had mentioned it before in things, like in some of his master classes, but watching him getting from his chair to the board, I'm like, yeah, I have an issue. And here I am, right? Like, it was, to me, very profound, because I have watched so many things that this man has done. I've been in front of his boot camps. I've done so many things. But yesterday, I think they say when the student is ready, right? Like the teacher will come or will arrive. And I'm like, oh, okay. So you don't have to be perfect, which we have never been perfect in the things that we do. But there are some limiting beliefs that I truly believe I'm still navigating.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of our listeners are, how many people haven't said, oh, I want to start a podcast. I'm like, great, do it. Oh, I want to be on my first podcast. I'm like, fantastic. Come join our link. You can be in our podcast. We have been speaking about that, like some of the pioneers and opening doors for some people that have dreamed about being on a podcast. And they have come here and this is their first podcast. And now they want to start their own. And we're like, fantastic. You saw that it's possible. And now you're taking action, right? So for me, one of the things was no more courses. So I have to fight with this because I still get like invitations. And I look at my budget. I'm like, no, girl, no. But I'm like, what? Can you take an action before you consume any more information?
Right.
Is there a possibility that you can just take an action? Like, what can you do right now?
Yeah.
Because I'm over like information overload right now.
Yeah. And I think it's so critically important to sit and do an inventory of all of the courses you have purchased, all of the subscriptions you are paying into. And I'm speaking more from the ones that are actually like tied to some financial investment, whether you are monthly contributing, whether you have, paid it all in full. Where exactly, what have you done with that information? Because I think, you kind of hit on this a few moments ago when you were talking about the limiting beliefs. And so the overthinking versus taking action. Like how easily we get in our mind about well, what if this fails? Like, well, you already bought the course. Like, girl, you should have thought about that before you give them your credit card. We're past that. You don't get these people all this money. Now you worried about if it's gonna fail. Like that, and it's one of those things where it's just like, if you start to, that limiting belief you were talking about, yes, we are going into spaces, especially for those of us like Maylin and I, who we are building things for the very first time. We didn't inherit any level.
We're not trust babies.
No, we're not Nepo babies. We don't have trust funds in that way. God willing, we'll be able to do that for our children. But, and I think that's part of just those limiting beliefs, but also those core anchors of how you were raised and how
they're engraved.
Yeah, they're engraved in how you make decisions about finances, how you make decisions about partners, how you make decisions about friendship circles. And so you get in this space of just overthinking and then you don't do anything. And then it's not a lack of, because you needed to be born from a particular bloodline. Now, I won't say that that doesn't provide you an advantage.
A privilege,
for sure. But it's also like, if you don't really believe that you can get there and that this is really going to happen, then you are investing into things with more of just like this hope spirit. But hope without action is dead. Like, there's nothing that can really be fruitful if you stay in a space of ideation without really believing that you can make this happen, that you're going to need help, you're going to need support, like the tools and things that you're investing in, but not tracking how those investments are actually helping you. And it's not that it can't help you, but if you're not going to really take the next step to actually implement the strategies, then essentially you're just investing in a dream versus an actual goal, deadline, destination.
Yeah, like I think now I ask myself, like, okay, you're going to get this, but what are you going to do with that? Like, what is the purpose of this, right? Like, what exactly are you trying to obtain out of this that you already don't have, or you may not already have in one of the courses you have, right? Because there's different things for people. Like, something that worked for me may not work for you, and that's fine. That's why there's 3,000 million coaches. That's why there's many, and everybody's going to be fine because there's so many people in the world, and you cannot help everybody by yourself.
Right.
So everybody has a thing. But I think it's important that people ask themselves that question first. But I think even like, I was feeling like, oh my God, I don't have discipline because there's so many things. I'm doing so much. I lack the discipline. And it's not the discipline. It's the lack of systems, right? Like, because sometimes we think we're lacking discipline and really what we're lacking is systems and, and process. And I heard that also in another thing that I heard. So like, how do you start, right? Because a lot of people know what they have to do. So let me tell you, you know what you have to do to get in shape. You can get on AI and AI will tell you, I have so many plans. Thank you, Sage. Sage is the name of my AI. Thank you so much for all the plans you have provided me on how I can get the killer body this summer. And that's great. But if I don't implement it, AI is not going to implement the idea for me. AI is not going to go to the gym for me. It's not going to pick the salad for me, right? So I think sometimes we get so excited with AI, which I am one of those people, and I create these plans and like I ask AI, what should I be doing to do this? It's like, this is what you should be doing. Great. All right, that was great. I feel really good. I got my little endorphins. I feel happy and I don't do anything. And I think right now people are not lacking like to know what to do. Is how do you take even the first step? Right. So for me, I wanted to start, like, I started this 90-day challenge. And instead of doing 3,000 things, I'm like, I just want to read 10 minutes a day. Like, that's the only thing I'm going to focus on. I just want to read 10 minutes a day in the mornings. And I've done that, 40% of the time since I started. I was like, well, that's better than zero, girl. So keep going. But so for you, if your thing is working out, like, can you walk 5 minutes a day? Start with that, because what I learned is you can build your confidence by keeping the promises you make to yourself.
Absolutely.
But it has to be like small. Like, you cannot start with, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week and I'm going to eat only salads. Like, you're already doing too much.
Yeah.
Find one thing that you can commit to. And as small as it feels, because sometimes like this is too small to even count, start small and then start building into that.
Yeah. And that's a perfect segue into how to build momentum quickly. And I think because, as we've talked about here today, getting to the space of having the ideas, doing the research, making the investments for that, professional development or personal development, but then really being intentional and saying that, okay, I've acquired everything I feel like I need. What is the actual process to putting it into motion? And if that's looking for, that could very much be aligned with friendship circles, professional circles. How are we creating true guardrails, I guess you could almost say, around like, okay, if I'm saying that my goal is to be able to start another business in the next year and I want to be able to net, let's say, $1 million. If that's really my goal, what are the daily, weekly, monthly goals that I need to put in place to actually begin to make that happen? And, yes, the research phase of that is a part of it, but that is not the full thing. It's about taking those actions, putting yourself, we talk a lot about the power of proximity, ensuring that we are in spaces and in circles to be able to learn from others, whether it's professional or personal. And that's a huge part. support. Oftentimes, some of the frustration I hear when meeting with other entrepreneurs is, taking on so much by themselves. When the reality is that there are folks that are in the same space as you right now. And so, how can you create coalitions or opportunities to bring, especially in the spaces where you start to feel like, I don't know if I can do this, or I'm starting to get burnt out, or, because oftentimes when you are building something or looking just simply to have something different, it doesn't have to be tied to building a business. You're just building the life you want to live. It's hard to go to people in your inner circle with that who have not yet achieved that. So looking for validation, looking for support from folks who they themselves have not yet attained that, they're not going to be able to pour into you. It's not that they don't want to, but they haven't even figured that out for themselves. And so oftentimes we limit, because we don't want to, I don't want to tell somebody, or I want to look like I have it all figured out. But you're really unnecessarily suffering because there are folks, there are villages. Now be selective, really thinking intentionally about what does that criteria look like. Is that joining, a country club? Is that joining some kind of YP group? Is that, an ERG group within your particular company, so that you are intentionally creating your circle of influence to really help you, especially in those spaces where you need to take action and you've gotten stuck in the ideation phase.
Yeah, and I think, everybody needs a mentor. I really think you need a mentor, a coach, because we're trying to figure out things that people already have figured out.
Yeah.
And it's like, why am I spending like all this energy when someone already done it well? So like in the past for me as an executive director, I'm like, who do I know there's a really great executive director? Like who's already doing this, killing the game on this?
Right.
Why don't I just go and have coffee with them and get some other wise information, right? Like, why not? There's people that want to start a nonprofit and they're like, I don't know what to do. There's great people, like we have started a nonprofit. We can tell you the great, the bad, and the ugly, and the pretty. Why don't have a conversation? Take somebody for coffee and ask them a couple questions. Now, some people will give you the information for free over a cup of coffee. Some people will charge you a consultation fee. Either way, you get to choose. I have had coffee with people that give me great information, and I have paid for consultations that have given me great information. Both have been great.
Yeah.
And there's no shame in that. I actually believe in paying people for their time.
I agree.
So it's like if somebody charges you $100 for a 1-hour meeting, and they're going to give you the blueprint of what you need to be successful in that thing you're trying to do, then go ahead and do that. And you can save yourself years of research and planning and all of that. So I suggest that. And then, for example, you also have to start doing an inventory of what you no longer need. Because sometimes we'll be doing things like for a long time and we're like, yeah, I'm just going to continue to pay for this and do this. And one day I will use it.
Yeah.
Will you use it? Right? Like for a great example for me is I've been a Zumba instructor since 2014, I think. Love it. I love dancing. I love the people. I was paying a membership yearly. I got them through COVID yearly. And then I asked myself, when was the last time you taught a class? When are you teaching a class? When do you have time to teach a class? So I gave myself a year. I said, in the next year, that was in 2025, I said, give yourself a year. If you teach a class, then you can keep this membership. If you don't teach a class in the next year, then you're going to have to cancel the membership. And then if you ever want to do it again, then you go get the class again because it's not difficult. And I literally had to sit with myself this year. And I was like, are you going to use this?
Yeah.
Not this year. Okay, so why are you paying for it? I was paying about $500 a year.
Wow.
So it was like a monthly of about $50 a month.
That's crazy.
To keep something that was but it was so sentimental to me.
I know. I remember that season.
Because I love Zumba and it gave me joy. And it was a joyful time for me. Right? So, and it was a community. And I was like, yeah, you have community. You don't need this community. This community, whoever likes you, who doesn't like you. And I'm like, who even knows that you teach Zumba? Nobody, right? Because you're not advertising it. So I literally had to, and it was, I sent it on the computer like, because I paused it. I actually even paused it first for a couple months to give myself the time to really think about it. And after like 3 months of pausing it, I said, you're not going to do it. Like, you don't have the capacity for this.
So the sermon I sent you today, where TD Jakes, do you remember when he talked about this part of it?
No.
Okay, so as you were describing this, in his sermon, he talks about how many of us hold on to things because of the sentimental value.
Oh, yes.
Versus, like, the actual, like, like if this is the right thing, if this is a good thing. And you said that Zumba reminded you of a time because you were really happy doing it and you loved the whole element of the environment, the whole thing. But you were paying into this membership because it was tied to a time in your life and a feeling in your life versus the reality of what you just said. Like, I'm not going to teach Zumba. Like, you know, that's not something that's just not my season right now. But you hung on to it because of what it represented.
Yes.
And how many of us are hanging on to things, relationships, subscriptions? Because in the sermon, he also talked about, like, you know, he used the example of relationships. He says some of you all are in relationships with people because you don't think you can do any better and you don't believe that you deserve any better.
Or that somebody will love you again.
That somebody would love you again. And so you're in spaces where you are settling significantly because of what you have told yourself, this belief you have told yourself. Whereas if you could make the step, make the decision to move forward, and that could be a friendship, a relationship, an employer, if you could just make that decision and bet on you, then that would create the space and the opportunity for you to really position yourself to be where, quite frankly, God intends you to be. But we kind of hang on to things because of the sentimental value or because we think this is the best it could be.
Yes. And then, so after that, it was so liberating because it was hard. And then I'm like, man, I am letting go of years. That was 2014. We're in 2026.
That's crazy. That was 14?
Yeah, 2014 when I became a Zumba instructor. And I was like, yeah. And I told myself, Zumba gave me what it needed to give me. Now, I've been doing and dancing to Zumba since 2001.
Well, you're Dominican because, I mean, that's in your DNA.
Yes, but like the Zumba concept, when it first came out, I had VHS. Like I was back in the day when I could afford my first thing with my own money. So it has been part of my life, right, for a long time. But then I'm like, not being part of this thing per se doesn't change that you love music, that you dance, and that one day you could go back if you wanted to, right? So I let go and I was like, great, that's one thing. And now I'm doing that with a lot of things. I'm evaluating, I wrote down and take an inventory. I do need to take an inventory of everything else that I may be paying for or may have in my life that I have to let go to create that space for the things that I want to create now that are going to serve me in this season.
Absolutely. And when you sent me that video yesterday, I started to do an inventory right away. So one of the things about me that I am one of those folks that the moment I've tasted it, it clicks, whatever. I'm over here like, oh, wow. Because in this video, he talks about the income producing assets. How are you taking money that you are generating, whether it be through an employer or like an investment, and how are you how are you spending that money? Is that money strictly going towards bills? Are you creating other assets that create revenue that you can then take that revenue and reinvest? And then eventually you'll be able to be in a space to live off of the profits of said assets. And it made me start to think about like, okay, so, you know, from the spaces of all of the things that I'm investing in, what out of those things are actually generating income or have the potential, right? And because he talked about writing a book 20 years ago. He said nobody bought that book for years.
Right.
And so he said, so a book I wrote 20 years ago, last year made me, I think it was like 60 or 80K. 80,000. And so when he said that, he said, so you have to understand that sometimes you're not going to see the fruits of these investments in the beginning. And then that sometimes with our generation, that is part of the problem because we want to see instant gratification. We want to see instant success.
We're going to go viral now.
Yeah. And some of these assets are long term. So he's like, a book I wrote 20 years ago is now paying me $80,000. And that's just one stream. And he wrote another book about 6 years ago. So he was just talking about compound asset building and how we're being intentional with producing, you know, before you play. And so, and that's a hard concept for me because I haven't always felt like I've gone straight to the play. Like I've always been more so, like I want to find the balance too, because I think I've seen so much unexpected loss over the years, so unexpected the world shutting down, 9/11, like just so many like major things. And I'm like, damn, I don't want to feel like I have to wait till I'm
100.
To be able to live my life. But then there's also has to be a very fine line of like that discipline and understanding that, the time and the energy and the way I'm making money now, like I have to be very, very careful with understanding that, it's not necessarily like, live in the moment, but then you also have to plan for the future. And I think I have, my husband and I, we are very divided when it comes to this topic because he is very much so delayed gratification. Like in his mind, we probably would have not gone on any vacations at all these years. And it was when we were actually not together at the time. I remember I had called him to tell him that I was going on a cruise with some of my friends. And so he was like very snarky on the phone. I'm like, what's the problem? Like,
I can tell you why.
He was very tight. He was like, and I was like, listen, I'm going on a 3-day. It was just something quick to Nassau. It was like not a big, whatever. So in that conversation, at first he had like a little toot. And then I asked him, I was like, what's the problem? Like, I'm only going to be gone 3 days, whatever. And he was like, no, that's not the issue. He's just like, like, I just like, you're constantly like going on trips and like, I don't get to go nowhere. And I said, well, that's a choice you're making not to go anywhere. And he was, in his mind, he just wasn't in a financial place to go anywhere. And I said, if you literally delay all of your life experiences until you're 70, then, like you could do that. But me personally, I'm not going to do that. And so by the conclusion of that call, I invited him to come with us. And I'm like, listen, if you want to come, I already got a cabin. I don't mind. We weren't even together. But at the time, I was like, if you want to come and the cost of the cabin is a burden that I could take on your behalf because I had money. It's crazy because I never had real money, but I had money. I've always had money. I don't know how, but, different seasons.
You had enough.
I had enough. Mm-hmm. And I also was always like, I'm going to make it back. Mm-hmm. Like, I never saw money in the same way.
Like, it will come back.
Yeah, I'm like, because I'm going to hustle just like I hustled to I go to work. I've never not worked. Mm-hmm. And so, like, at the time, I'm like, well, I'm already paying for the cabin. So if you want to come, you just got to buy your flight. So I left the ball in his court. You want to go? These are the dates. Let me know, and I'll add you to my reservation. The next day, he sends me a text message, and he has his flight information. And I was like, oh, he booked it. So I called Carnival and added him to the reservation. And when I tell you that was his first cruise and his first time out of the country, because, it went to Nassau, and I just remember just seeing like his, wow, like there's a whole,
perspective change.
Like, and it's still not this to this day where he's like, he's still very, very rigorous when it comes to that. And I appreciate that to a degree because I understand what he's saying about saving and being good stewards of like...
Not financing your vacation, like Myron said yesterday.
Right. And I was just like, I'm willing to go down to 1 a year. But not doing nothing.
He said,
like,
what did he say?
I don't know what he said. I heard that part. I was like, oh, I know where Maylin's going with this. I was like, Maylin, I just need one, just one. But it's just such a fine...
There has to be a balance.
There has to be a balance.
I don't believe anymore in the idea that you have to wait till retirement to enjoy life because a lot of people don't make it to retirement. So I agree with that. But I also believe that you have to work hard now to create work optional. So it's not like you're trying to retire, but becoming work optional, which means you're getting those income producing assets to help you with the passive income or active income to start like paying for your bills. So that's the concept that I understand it. I know it. I think implementing it, there's, it's a lot of work still.
Yeah.
But I think you can start by where I am right now with all of this is I have a vague idea of what like my needs are monthly, right? Because I just go like, okay, I have, pay it, and then Rob Paul to pay Peter, whatever. But it's like, no, truly, you got to sit down and look at what is your income, right? What are your expenses that are not like, not beauty, but like what is your rent? What is your car payment if you have a car payment? What is your electric bill? Like figure out what are your expenses that you need to live, right? Those needs, right? For your house. And is it at 5,000? Is it 3,000? Once you know that number, that's actually a very freeing number. At one point I think that number has changed. I'm gonna need to look at that again. But once you know what you make and then you know what you expend, a lot of times people are finding they're expending more than they're making, which is why you're in the situation, right? Because if your expenses are 5,000, you're making 3, you 2 on the whole every month. So that's why credit cards are of the wazoo.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to start looking. Once you have that, you have 2 choices. You either make more money, so you get a part-time job, you do deliveries, whatever it is to make more money, and also look at your expenses. Can you cut that? Is there anything you can cut? Yeah. So I started by cutting that membership I wasn't using. I said that's $500 a year I can use for investments instead of paying for something that I have a beautiful sentiment to. What else can I take out? I don't have cable. I don't watch TV like that.
Yeah.
I watch videos on YouTube. Is there anything that you're paying for right now that you don't need, that you can use that money to either pay debt that you have, get a life insurance that actually creates you some cash value? Really start looking, like, as if we can master that now. And I mean, I don't mean master like perfect, but I mean master like really start like focusing on those things. Then you can create work optional where you can actually plan vacations once a quarter. I would love to take a vacation once a month, but I'll start with like, what about once a quarter?
Yeah.
Where I can just go somewhere and it's not money that I'm going to have to finance. Like, okay, I'm going to put it as an envelope. So every paycheck or every time you make money, we sold 10 books. Okay, half of that is going to go into a vacation. Yeah. Like, we have to start thinking this way.
I agree.
Otherwise, you're going to be 70 and you're going to be working at Walmart because you're not going to have enough. Let me tell you, that Social Security, I don't know what you have seen about Social Security, but if you want a fire under your butt, I invite you to go into your Social Security website is I think it says .gov. Go to your Social Security account. Go open it. Go look at what you're going to make if you retire at 62, which is the earliest. I'm retiring at 62 from there. I don't care why you offer me at 70. When you're 62, what would you make? And you will see that even though if you have been working for 50 years, that amount is not going to cover your monthly expenses.
Right.
Because that's not the retirement thing. So look at that and then start telling yourself, okay, what do I need to do now to ensure that I am good now, but also when I get to that age?
Absolutely. Well, I hope this episode was helpful to you. Certainly if it resonated with you, please like, share, and in the comments, let us know, what does this look like for you? Is this something that you are presently navigating? And just as a recap, we talked today about doing an inventory on, what is your return on investment on any subscriptions, any courses, anything that you are investing in as you have identified that as professional development or asset generating, and then really taking the time, as Maylin indicated, to look at what are your present expenses, what are your non-negotiable expenses, what are your housing, food, gas, and then what are some of those extra expenses that you're presently, putting out every single month, and figuring out what needs to stay, what needs to go, as we understand that there's a lot of information, especially we live in an era where there's just information everywhere. But we are here to remind you, you don't need more information. You need execution. And so as we close today, as we always remind each other and all of you, it's bigger than you.
Thank you so much for listening today. We're excited and we hope that you follow us on
Instagram, True Print for Life, YouTube channel, also True Print for Life. And make sure that you share, like, watch our videos. Make sure that you follow us on all streaming platforms.